show notes on the video, and you can always just drop a note there for us. You can also sign up for our newsletter. Leah and I are planning a couple new sessions, probably start in the next couple months. We'll be doing a class on, we'll probably be doing like an intro class as always, which goes through Runway. If you haven't checked out the Runway videos, we just did a show and tell from that last Tuesday. So definitely check that out. And then if you, we also will probably do another StyleGAN class. So if you're interested, check those out as well. All of the videos from our previous classes are on YouTube. So you can always check them out there. So you can just join in whenever you want. All the videos from there are free to stream. So you can check those out, and then the classes themselves cost money, but then you get live me and Leah at any point you want. Let's see, other things to note. Leah, anything else that you want to add?
We could give a quick little description of what the class was.
That's a good call. Let's do that. Yeah, so this was a 5-week class. It was all about StyleGAN. So we learned sort of how StyleGAN works. We learned how to train our own models. So most of the students had to deal with the joy that is GCP and getting set up on there. And then we also did, looked at a lot at interpolation. So I think most of the projects you're going to see here will deal with how we actually generate new images and video from these models. We looked at feature vectors. We looked at a lot of stuff. This was actually a pretty intense class. In fact, I learned a lot just in making stuff for this class. And what's really cool about this in particular is that there were some things that launched, some new features and things that launched basically just around the time when class started. And like we got those put into the class by the end of the time period. So it's a pretty fun class in that you learn really, really breaking edge type of stuff in this class. So it's a lot of fun. Moises, so also I want to give a shout out to Moises, who is our AV person for this live stream. He has done a ton of work getting us set up. It turns out live streaming is a rather complicated thing. So I'm really happy that he is able to help us out with this. Moises, can you go ahead and pull up the slides? Perfect. Yeah, so I just want to let everyone know that we had 15 students for this class, people from all across the globe. I think Kainen's in somewhere in China, I believe. And yeah, so like, you know, I think it's like 12 hours difference. So it's midnight when it's noon for us. We also had Kyle, who I think was in Hawaii. So like, he was taking like 6 a.m. Classes. So I really appreciated that he got up early for us. So this is a lot of fun class. So it was like really nice to have everyone from across the world be able to tune in and like hang out together. And it formed a nice, like I found it to be a really great community. Everyone was really helpful with each other. So it was really fun. I think about half the students are going to be presenting work today. So we'll see a lot of that work soon. So each student will have about 10 minutes to present. We'll sort of see how it goes. At the end, there will be time for like a Q&A. So if there's questions you have like are general for everyone, you can save those to the end or just drop them in the chat and Lee and I will note them for the end session. And then, you know, so there's gonna be a lot of work. I don't know that we'll actually be 10 minutes per person. So the session will probably last about an hour. Yeah, so we'll just sort of see how it goes. And then I don't think, yeah, so we'll sort of see. Also, I should say, we did have technical difficulties last time. If we do drop off for whatever reason, someone will just drop a note in the chat. And we appreciate you hanging tight and keeping an eye on everything and dealing with any technical issues we run into. This is our second time doing this. So Moises is doing a great job, but sometimes things happen. So we'll sort of stay with that. Yeah, oh, he got a better fan. So that's awesome. Yeah, so I think that covers just about everything we want to talk about. Again, if you are interested, you can drop a note in the chat with any questions you have. Check out the links. So after this whole session is done, I'll make sure that we grab everyone's social media contact info and we'll place it in the description for the video. So if you at any point do want to reach out to these individual artists and talk to them about the work they produced, or I don't know, maybe support their work, you can always do that. So we'll make sure we have a video for this and all links to everyone's work from there. Lastly, if you want to, we have a Slack channel that I think is linked to again from the video. You can go in and join and talk to us and talk about work or anything. There's a ton of channels in there, and we've had a pretty good amount of activity. There's usually a couple posts a day, people asking questions, people trying to work on projects. So it's a nice little community that we've built up over time, and I'm really excited to see it grow more. So thank you everyone for keeping an eye on this. And so you can ask questions live. Go ahead and just drop a note in the chat, and Leah and I will field those and bring them to you. So I think Anastasiia isn't here, so we're actually going to start with Adam. Adam, are you ready to kick it off? I think you might be muted, Adam.
Okay, you can hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I'm an art director based in Toronto. I do a mix of work for either advertising or the tech industry. You can see a lot of my work on my website, adampickard.com. And if you want to see specifically the ML work I've been doing, you can see it on my Instagram at Style Transfer. Today I'm going to show two projects. The first one is going to be like a post, maybe on Medium or something. And I just need to get a little bit more feedback from Derek and Leah on the writing part. But what I thought I'd show is just roughly the ideas I'm talking about, and then the examples that I executed that from things I learned in the class. As well, I want to, the second one is actually going to be all about something totally different, and it's kind of a work in progress, and I kind of want to see what people think of it. So yeah. So the first one is I'm sort of interested in the idea of using GANs as a way to develop ideas and as a conceptual tool. So I know that within AI and ML, there's a discussion of whether or not these technologies are going to replace humans or just be a tool. So I'm using an example here as it being used as a tool. The GANs are all done in sort of StyleGAN2, and I used my chair model as the example, but you could do it for anything that you have a good data set of images. This is a little animation I made of the data set in the background and a latent space floating over top here. Just to sort of explain a little bit of how the technology works. For this here, projection is a method I really like, and it was developed as a way to detect potentially deep fake images and search almost like a Google reverse image search in an existing model. So I just did this as kind of a funny way to say that I'm not a deep fake. I'm probably a real person. This is the first example I give about how you could use it for concept development. This would be if you want to reference a couple famous designs and get inspiration from those. So on the left is the famous design image. On the right is it searching the model to find the closest representation it can find. This is an example of using GAN space to make a GUI to explore different attributes of the model. So you could choose from a bunch of random seeds. And then if you wanted to see how smoothing might affect your model, or span. I found this process kind of fun because it was tough to figure out those attributes using the method, but it's kind of fun to see how you can find these and how it could potentially work to explore a model. And I think it's just part of it. I'm trying to encourage people just to be creative. So why do you have to just interact in traditional ways? maybe you could sing or yell at your model as a way to explore it and find variations and inspiration. And I also sort of, and this is my sort of animation to explore that GANs are not going to replace people anytime soon. And in fact, humans are important. It's important for humans to be involved with things like ergonomics and stuff like that. Like these models won't just generate a final image, but people are actually going to have to be involved. So I'm going to play with this a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of a funny way to show it. For the second project, quite different. It's kind of a little bit more a personal story. So here, Emily Carr is an artist known on the West Coast. I grew up in Vancouver, and she's very known as being very iconic to the area and the nature surrounding it. And growing up in Vancouver, like I went to the art school I went to was named after her. Very well known as sort of established artist with a very distinct style. Growing up, I was lucky enough to actually grow up with an Emily Carr in my house, which I always sort of had a bit of pride about and stuff, and was pretty excited to sort of show people that we had an Emily Carr. Now, at a certain point, sort of later on, my mom, I think for insurance reasons, tried to go and get it authenticated. And even though we had corresponding documents from galleries that still exist to this day, they did one of those tests where they checked a signature and they got the best authenticator of her work when she was still alive to look at it. Apparently the signature was done much later than the work itself was actually made. So that's a strong indicator that it could be in fact a fake. So it was just something in the back of my head and kind of a funny development. And just for background, I earlier on had played around with StyleGAN2 to actually use her work before. So I made a model with her work using StyleGAN2. So that what you're seeing is one model in the middle, and then I made a separate one in just using picture frames for the outside, and I put it all together in Cinema 4D. So projection, yeah, I really, really like it. And I think at some point, there's a lot of reference within StyleGAN about fakes. I mean, the images you create are fakes. There's a bunch of like language like that within it. So I think that was sort of in the back of my head. And at a certain point, I sort of came up with an idea around using projection and her work. And so what I'm interested what I wanted to do was use projection to visualize the space between real and fake. Like if I make a model and I use all of her work and then I do a projection of it, like how close is it going to get to it? And also like, I kind of thought it was like, maybe like I had high hopes. I didn't know if this was going to work at all, but I was also a little bit interested in like also like an alternate reality where maybe she did paint this. What would that look like? So here's the latent space. One of the challenges is that she's only actually got 40 pieces of certified, of authenticated work. So it was a challenge using a whole bunch of different cropping methods and stuff to actually be able to get enough to train with. And so this is just the latent space, one of them that I made. Now, on the left, you've got the, moundscape by somebody, and on the right, you've got my projection into the model. So this was the first one I did, and this is searching the model for the closest thing it has to the painting that I grew up with. And you can see it has some representation of the mountain, and you can see the trees and stuff, but it's obviously, I had slightly higher hopes. And one of our breakout classes, someone suggested that maybe I could use a bunch of other artists' work. What I decided to use was a bunch of the contemporaries. So a bunch of other artists that she would have been aware of and some of her influences, and make a much larger model than the 40 works that I had. So same idea, but expanded to a lot larger amount of artists. And I wanted to see if I could get something closer to that image. So this is using the new, bigger model. And what I got was actually better than the first one and something closer to it. So here you can see an example of if the model that was generated on the right and the original piece of artwork on the left. And it was just something interesting that I wanted to explore, and the idea of fakes and like that space that exists within the two. And this was something that, because it's still something I'm working on, just wanted what people thought. And if there's like, I don't know what to do with this, because I don't know if I should just do another document, like, or write another thing, or try to put it in a art show somewhere, if there still are art shows anywhere, you know, like something like that. So anyhow, that's kind of where I'm left. So anybody has thoughts on this, or, you know, it was great because this got better as we had those breakout groups and people's, you know, someone suggested that I do that. So any other kind of suggestions of what to do with this, I'd like. And yeah, thanks again. Anyone who's interested in the class, I really enjoyed it. So.
Adam, thanks so much. I'm really interested to hear, you know, so I know you'd been doing a lot of StyleGAN work previously. If you haven't seen some of Adam's work, there's some really interesting stuff that I know he was doing through Runway. I'm interested to sort of hear from you, like, what did you learn in this class that you think, like, what are sort of your next steps based on the stuff you've learned in this class?
Let me see if I can just, sorry, what was my next steps?
Yeah, or just like, what were you most interested in after having taken this class?
I just, like, for me, it was a bit of a challenge. I've always struggled with programming, so it was really cool. Like, I felt that until recently, the barrier, I've been following this stuff, but until recently, the barrier of actually doing this kind of work has been really difficult for me. I tried to get, you know, download GitHub repositories, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I think between, like, Runway is a great introduction to some of it to get you going, and then starting to, you know, figure out how to train the models, and especially in Google, like, Colab, that makes so much more sense to me as a way to learn than I've started putting from the notebooks that I got from both of you. I put like my little my own notes on the side to remind me the mistakes I keep making. Like, like I probably won't share those ones exactly with people, but like, it was like when I spent 45 minutes because I didn't use the right syntax somewhere, I had a wrong comma, I'd put these little little idiot notes to remind myself. So I really like that. And I think it's helped me understand, like, it's an into programming that that I haven't had before. So yeah.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, one thing I'm certainly learning just from teaching this class is, like, we can be doing a lot, like, as we can be doing a lot better job of documenting and making tools for people to use. So it's been a lot of fun for me just to sort of see, like, what we can produce, like, to help y'all. And I think the Colab notebooks are a great example of that just having, like, some notes in addition to the code is, like, enough to get people sort of walking through things in a way that is really helpful. So yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. I think up next is Allanah, is that right? And I think she has a video that she wants to share.
Oh, Anastasia's ready to go.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome.
Possible, can I go, because I'm in 2 crits at once?
Of course, yeah, go for it.
And I will have to jump out right after.
Yeah,
So
go for it,
okay.
please. Yeah, totally.
Okay, so let's see, I'm gonna try to share my screen. All right, and this is not like a formal presentation of any sort, but mainly just looking at the videos. And can you guys see sort of the things that?
Yep.
Okay, on this. Okay, great. Sort of things that I have created throughout the class, and this was kind of so the data set was based on over 2,000 images of neurons and microorganisms that represent human microbiome. And the reason behind that was, well, first of all, I've been trying, or I've been thinking about this for a long time, like thinking about synthetic natures and how what type of microorganisms we might encounter down the line, and how do they mutate, and sort of how, like, what does that even look like visually? Like, we have synthetic biology to do that for us, but visually, what does it look like? So these are the videos that I ended up with, and thinking, and I think that changed my thinking about GANs entirely, because before, my introduction to GANs was mainly through the Rutgers paper that I had encountered, where they had created their first GAN that was presented at a Basel Art Fair in sort of represent abstract paintings that were done by an algorithm, and they were juxtaposed against human paintings, and sort of, can you tell the difference, right? And then that paper was going specifically into how they went about creating the algorithm, and by sort of categorizing art into its respective sort of genres, like impressionism, surrealism, so on and so forth, to someone who actually has background knowledge in art history. Like, that all seems very kind of reductionist, because we don't really think about art in genres, and that appears afterwards. And then another part that was interesting to me is that the paper was focusing on the fact that sort of GANs are focusing on this middle space that people find aesthetically pleasing. So a little bit further, it's too plain, a little bit too far into the grotesque, it's too weird. So kind of like finding the middle ground that is, that kind of feeds into the universal taste. And to me, sort of the further side, the grotesque side, is really interesting. And this is something that I think these images are able to accomplish. So I'm obviously really excited about the visual output, but I also utilized it in a project that I was working on with my students this semester, and this is the project that deals with sort of the ideas of future of mobility. And we started the project in January, before COVID broke out, but we started hearing some news, but never really understood sort of a way of like how it's actually going to affect us. So I'm going to walk you through how these images, these GAN-generated images, had also appeared in a number of different variations. And I'll send you the link later, but sort of this is the world where our identity, so human microbiome is specific to each person. And this is sort of a speculative world where your identity and your passport is being calculated based on your specific microbiome. So this is kind of, the project was done with industrial design students, animation students, and graphic design students. There are 4 students in the group. So we're creating objects and things around this speculative narrative.
I think we may have lost her. We'll see if she comes back in just a minute. That was a really cool project. I really want to hear more about this. Oh, she's reconnecting.
Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, great. So, oh, Jesus. Okay, how is it that I'm seeing my own screen? This is weird. Okay, so it's still, I can't share screen while other participant is sharing.
Hold on, let me see if I can fix that. There we go. I think it's fixed now. I think you can share your screen now.
Let's see.
Also, I love they used it as your background. It's great.
Yeah, that was for the presentation on Friday. So all the students were using it as a background. So we're thinking about how identity and national citizenship is redefined by the microorganisms that are inside and outside of your body. So we had created this sort of speculative world. Come on. Okay, there it is. So now these textures exist in these, we call these resource distribution vehicles. Sorry, the sound. Gonna try to. So we're using, again, industrial design students design this object, animation student translated it into VR space, and they're kind of these expanding and contracting flying things that can also function as vehicles for non-humans. And later, well, there's more about the project, but then later this also functions as an exhibition space where all of these objects coexist together. Oh, and yeah, one more thing. So for me, it was definitely exciting to take it from one space, but then also translate it into a variety of different media, and how this can be sort of a source of inspiration, but also as a material that can be utilized throughout or create a specific visual language with. I'm gonna go back. Let's see. Oh, and then there are these really cute AR application things that also expand and contract, and you can download a Snapchat filter for that. And you can see how these shapes sort of, we had come up with this new visual language that we call microbial grotesque. In order to communicate our relationship with invisible microorganisms around us. So again, thinking about the role, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, hopefully, so it doesn't crash again. But thinking about GANs as something that is based on very specific categorizations and ways of reducing very complex ideas into something. So this is how I used to think about it, right? So some scientists are trying to reduce art into into an algorithm, and they're doing a very bad job at it. So as designers and artists, we have to kind of jump in and kind of make it specific to our understanding and representation of art. But after this project, I think I'm looking at GAN algorithms as a space for making images or animating images in a very different way that video does, or even animation does. So giving life to images and sort of the quality that it creates through sort of being able to exist in these 512 dimensions. And again, like, I'm not a coder, I'm only like using sort of these imaginative ways of interpreting the content that you guys had presented to us, but thinking about sort of the motion that it creates and animates and brings the images to life. And that's something that I think like After Effects would not be able to do, or any other program that I've dealt with is not capable of doing just yet. But sort of the level of detail and level of kind of the intricacy of existing or sort of representing the image in all of these spaces at once is something that I had experienced myself. Again, just maybe like my own interpretation of everything that we've gone through, but yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's awesome to see also that you were taking stuff you learned from this class and immediately applying it to your own classes. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, so this was a collaborative course where I was working together with students, so they were really excited about kind of how can we utilize all of these technologies in different ways.
Yeah, and you saw like it was everything, VR, AR. machine learning, sort of everything. Yeah.
We didn't get to machine learning. It was just my exploration that they were utilizing in their projects. But ideally, over the summer, like hopefully, and this is something that I want to talk to you later, introducing this group of students to machine learning is sort of like one plan that we really want to do. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you have to run back to another crit. Is that right?
Yeah. I do.
Okay. Good luck.
Anyways,
thank you so much.
Thank you, and I hope to see you soon in another class. Hopefully. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
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 Allanah, was there something that you wanted to say before we play the video, or should we just play the video straight?
You can just play the video. I cover everything in it.
Cool.
So.
Sounds good.
Hi.
Moises, when you're ready.
I'm recording this video as I have poor internet connection where I am, and it would probably drop out. Please enjoy this video in the background while I explain myself. Before I started this class, I was very casually working away on a virtual landscape photography project in which I was composing and screenshotting landscapes in the video game Skyrim. And that project kind of came about due to the COVID thing. I had some long-awaited opportunities be deferred to next year, and specifically I was supposed to be in California during April as the Mojave National Preserve's artist-in-residence. And I was supposed to go to Newfoundland in the summer for another artist-in-residence program, this one at Grossmore National Park. Now I'm doing both those things next year. So I had planned on doing a side project that involved landscape photography at both of these places, and I started up this virtual landscape photo project basically as soon as all my plans got tanked at the end of March. I was kind of viewing it as a sort of exercise for, you know, working on composition or whatever. And a few weeks into Derek's class, I realized I could make an interesting data set to train a StyleGAN2 model on using these images. And I will show you some of the images that I took. Why aren't you stopping? There we go. When I decided I was going to make a data set out of it, I restarted the entire photo collection process so I could mod the game and get different mods that would change up the textures and the different tree models, the plant models, stuff like that. And I took these screenshots for the data set using a combination of different aesthetic mods, which I switched up every few hours. And I was concerned about this because earlier in the class I had some trouble with mode collapse, where it just latches on to repeated elements and then like the whole model just melts down. And I didn't want that to happen with this, particularly this being a labor-intensive data set generating method. So I took great pains to like make sure everything looked like quite different. I initially trained a 1280 by 768 model on the first 1,000 images I came up with, and I liked the results. So I expanded the dataset to 2,300 images, and that took about 20 hours of playtime to gather. The model I'm showing you right now, and I will show you that model right now. Where are you? There. It was actually trained as a 1024 by 1024 square model, like that, which I letterboxed the landscapes into it so that I would have that aspect ratio. And I knew that I eventually wanted to do projection into this model, and I only know how to do projection into square models. Right now, that's kind of the next thing on the list for machine learning. I think the fakes turned out pretty well. Like at a distance, they look fairly convincing as Skyrim screenshots. Once you get closer, it like gets weird, as is always the case with StyleGAN. But yeah, like that's a tree, right? It's a mountain. That's kind of water. It kind of understands the whole level of detail thing, and things fade out as they recede into the distance. So these fakes are after about 4 days of training, and I stopped it about there. It wasn't improving much after that. So once I trained it, I took the model and I projected real landscapes into it. Let's see. And these landscapes, they're from Grossmoor National Park, where I was supposed to be in the summer. Both Newfoundland and Skyrim have sort of a rocky, coniferous tree, lots of mountains kind of thing going on. So I thought they'd go well together. And the idea behind this was to remotely recreate elements of Grossmoor using a consistent visual language, which I derived from Skyrim. And that was in an attempt to bring these landscapes closer to me, since I can't physically go to them anytime soon and experience them in person. Here's another one. This is Grossmoor Mountain. And I think it did a fairly good job of translating the colors in particular. And like definitely kind of a mountain, you know, definitely some trees there and clouds happening. And the video that I showed you when I was talking at the beginning of my presentation, this is derived from a 360 photo from Google Street View, which was taken from a trail in the park. And I just took about 10 images or so from different angles of this 360 photo and projected them into the model and then interpolated between them. And I was hoping it would actually look like you're standing in place and looking around a landscape in latent space, but it really doesn't. It just kind of like shifts in place, which is fine, I guess. It was an experiment. For this one, I did a very similar thing, except for I was using the top Google image results for a place in the park called Western Brook Pond. And that's kind of one of the iconic landscapes within Grossmoor. A lot of Instagram photos get taken there. So I did the same thing, projected these Google image results and then interpolated between the results. I'd like to retrain the larger data set, like the 2300 image data set on a 1280 by 768 size model, once I figure out how to make projection work with non-square models, as that would be a significant increase in resolution. It would almost double it, and it would make it a lot easier to work with in the future in case I want to do some prints or something like that. As is, I think the size could make a nice postcard project, and I might look into that sometime in the future. If you have any questions about this, please drop them in the YouTube chat, and I will try my best to answer them via Zoom. Thanks.
That was cool. That was really great.
I'm pre-recording this video as I have poor internet connection where I am, and it would probably drop out. Please enjoy this video in the back.
Moises will fix that in a second. Thanks, Moises. That was great. I'm really interested in your concept of placemaking. Like, you're doing so much with sort of like, it sounds like your art is very site specific. So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about how you found working with GANs, but also like, obviously it's sort of a perfect time in the sense that you can't be in a site specific place to work on this stuff.
Yeah, I like, as soon as like, so both these residencies, they got deferred. As soon as that happened, I knew that I wanted to like still make work about these places, because I've been doing research for years, well, a year, for Grossmoor, and like getting ready for my other project, which was that my photogrammetry 3D scanning thing and then 3D printing. So I feel like I know that place so well, but I've never been there. Same thing with Mojave. I've been researching that place for like 2 years, and I felt like desert wildflowers, but I still haven't been down there. And like with Mojave, I have an opportunity to submit a work that's like remotely inspired by the Mojave. And I'm planning on doing a similar thing to this Skyrim Grossmorn project, but with Mojave and using Fallout 3 New Vegas, because it takes place in the Mojave Desert, or a post-apocalyptic version. And I'm going to do that probably in the next couple of weeks. But I just happened to be playing Skyrim for the 10th time, and I thought I'd start with that since I was doing this landscape project anyways.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you're not only doing site-specific sort of GAN work, but you're also doing video game-inspired sites. There's lots of really interesting stuff to play with there. Cool. Well, yeah, I hope that when you do get to go to Mojave and Grossmore, that you can take more photos and then play with these models. I'm sure in a year we'll also have even better resolution models, and you'll get like almost pure realism at this. Maybe not pure realism, but you'll get really, really close. So I'm excited to sort of see what happens with that. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Kaitlin, you're up next.
Cool. Hey guys, my name is Kaitlin. Quick background on me is I've got my start in the arts, and then at some point discovered that I enjoyed making really complicated things, but I was very, very lazy. So writing software to create my art kind of was the natural way of things for me. And that took me into more software engineering, and now I'm working in DevOps. But what I always liked in my art practice and what I like in my career now is building tools. So I'm going to share something that I've been building. All right, my windows are flying around and I may have, okay. So what in the world are you guys looking at? So this is basically a hacky After Effects that I've been building. I decided I wanted to make some longer format interpolation videos using a model I had trained, but that kind of thing is, I at least find really hard to do just solely writing code, because every time you want to change some timing or, you know, iterate on like the sequencing or something, like refactoring code in that way just is not fast. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna put some work into a GUI. This is built in Open Frameworks, which is a C++ creative coding framework, started by Zach Lieberman and some other folks. There's a really nice library called OFX Timeline that was originally written by James George in like 2011, 2012. And I thought it would be a really great candidate for building this kind of application. So what you're seeing here is essentially a video track timeline and a really lame media browser. So I've trained my model. I've generated a bunch of images from different seeds, and then I've fed them into this program. So every thumbnail in this like bottom media browser section is representing an image generated by a specific seed. And then I have a timeline set up where I can add keyframes. I can assign different easing functions on those keyframes. Zoom in a little bit here. And then when I have selected an image, I can assign a seed to that keyframe. And I find this a pretty decent way of being able to understand what the entire composition is going to end up feeling like. And then from there, let's see, I think I might have to stop and start again. Cool. So from there, the program saves all its data as XML. So for every keyframe, you end up getting like what seed it was created with, its time code, and some other data, like it's the kind of easing that applies at that keyframe. And then I think I might have to stop and start again. Sorry, guys, I keep screwing around with my windows. From there, well, I'll just tell you guys because I have no idea where my collab window went. From there, it's as easy as just writing the Python that ingests that XML and does the actual generation. So Moises, I sent over some videos. I don't know if you can cue them up now, just to show a couple of examples of what the output ends up looking like. Yeah, feel free to pop in if anyone has questions, but
I think Moises is going to go ahead and play those now. So let's
cool.
take a look.
Awesome. So I have two videos, and one of these videos shows just a short composition. So I think this looks like it's the one with easing. So this one, instead of just chugging along at a single speed through the composition, it kind of, the pacing of it is controlled by the easing functions that you saw in the application. And that I found has been a really effective tool for just having a bit more control over these things than I was previously having. Yeah, but it's very much a work in progress. I do not do any front end work at my job, so I am very out of practice with all of that. So I would love to collaborate with any product designers or UX designers on like what this application should actually look like. I want to build in features like effect tracks. So you guys saw there was a single track that controlled the sequencing of the seeds, but I could absolutely add, and I want to add other tracks that allow you to modulate with a specific vector. So if I had a feature vector that I really liked, I could basically layer that as an effect on top of another sequence that I was composing. I think that would be really cool. I want to add in audio waveform visualization so I can kind of compose things against an audio track, things like that. Work in progress. I think that's my thing.
This is really, really awesome. I'm really excited to see you like taking on some work and like extending this further along. I'm interested to hear like what sort of, since you have like a pretty good amount of technical experience and this class tries to not be super technical, I'm interested to hear like what would you have looked for next, and sort of like what other tools could exist for these things, or what other thoughts did you have around making more tooling for GANs in general?
I mean, I think it's definitely a hard thing to do in a class just because all of our backgrounds were so different. I did feel like the class was a lot of demo, and it was like, okay, here's how you run the code, but not a lot of discussion like here's how you can update the code to do other things. So I would love some more breakout sessions on not only how can you like iterate on your actual model with the existing code, but how can you start getting comfortable editing these things on your own, and just building that kind of it's hard to do because not all of us are familiar with reading code, but I had a lot of fun with it though.
Cool. No, and I think that's a good point that also like, you know, the code underlying a lot of this stuff is actually like fairly different than what you might experience with other applications. So it does definitely take a long time and to sort of at least like understand all the pieces. And I'll say like many machine learning people have told me that the StyleGAN code in particular is spaghetti and very hard to read. So I think that's definitely a worthy thing to think about for the future, for sure.
Yeah, I am 1000% not a Python person. That's why I built this thing in C++. But it would be sick if like you could either run this application on a computer that does have a GPU powerful enough where you could just execute the Python as a sub process right from the application, and do the visualization like right there in the window. Otherwise, someone better at Python could probably just build this in Python.
For sure. I think there's always someone better at something than us, and it's, yeah, we just have to sort of learn. But I love seeing just you make the best of what you had available to you. I think that interface is like already starting to be a tool that I could see other people use and make more creative work than they are currently. Because it's true that it's like right now you basically have a text-based interface in Colab, and you have to sort of like tweak little things here and there and spit out stuff and look at it. I think there's just like a much better feedback loop through what you're producing. I think really
Yeah, I would love to get this compiled for release and share it.
Totally, yeah.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
I think Esteban is up next, and I think he has a video that we're going to play. So Moise, if you want to go ahead and get that loaded up.
Hi, good morning. It's great to be here. I'm originally from Ecuador, currently based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm an artist interested in generative art and also work as a graphic designer in my day job, doing experiential design. This image that you see here inspires me a lot. This Ecuador, one of the places that I really love, called San Pablo Lake. And the reason because I'm showing this is because you will see that this is connected with my work a lot. I'm really inspired by bright colors and nature, and that's something that is something that is connected along the way. So there are two topics that interest me a lot, which are transformation and consciousness. These are two things that I am trying to explore in my artistic practice. And I'm trying to express that in analog and digital media. So I started working several years ago doing analog collage, paper collage, and mixing media like drawings, and experimenting with this idea of transformation and how shapes convey a new concept or maybe a new idea expressed by collage. And some of the pieces that you see here were made with analog media. I didn't have any experience at all doing machine learning. But then I was interested, before that, I was interested in doing and exploring some generative art. So to do that, I started using apps in my phone or apps for my iPad, and I started exploring with these shapes. And I was trying to convey the idea of translucency or crystals or light. But I think I wasn't they weren't good enough for me until I found the course with machine learning with Derek, which responds a lot for the things that I would like to do. So I'm gonna show you some of the early work that I did in the first, because I did two courses with Derek. I did one here in New York City. And basically what I did is I used all the images that I created before during my early experiences with generative art. And basically what I like to do all the time when I'm doing machine learning is I create my own data sets. So I fine tune them. I don't like to use other images from other people. Well, I try not to do that, but most of the time I create my own data sets. So in this case, this was from the first course that I did. I created 4,000 images, and I trained this model. Then I did like 3 different runs. The first one was with 4,000 images. It didn't work out well, and then later I decided to simply use 2,500 images, and it worked really well. This is the image that you're seeing now. And I use paper space to train the model. I trained it 3 times before I found the right image, and this was the result. I use linear interpolation to do this. I really like the result because it was exactly the thing that I was looking for. Conveying this idea of fluids and movement and light in one image, and at the same time, I generated a lot of images out of this that I really like, and I feel like it's a new art form for me. So after that, I started generating more animations like these, and then I thought that maybe I could add some sounds. I don't know if you're going to hear this, but basically what I did is I added some sounds to the animations. And also I think it works really well having these images together in one panel. So later I took the second course, which is a StyleGAN2 advanced mode, and I started exploring the idea of using these images of tree barks, and I took 500 images. I shot them myself from a park here in Brooklyn, and I trained it for 2 days. It wasn't exactly the thing that I was looking for, maybe because of the complexity of the images. So what I did is I generated some linear interpolations, and the result is like kind of okay. But I just wanted to share with you the process that I'm doing. I love to do a lot of processes in my work. So the next one, I use this 4K from Jacob and Katie Schartz. It's a ritual war dance from an American Indian guy, and this is the result. Again, 1,500 images. I trained it for 2 days, and in this case I used the Skyfly Nail fork in GCP, and the result you will see. It's not exactly what I was expecting to see. It looks like a random texture. So then I decided, like, it's not the best thing that I can do with this. Probably I have to train it more. So next, I did a new model using 1,000 unique artworks in Illustrator. So it was a very intensive work because I had to avoid repetition on each piece. So I love doing this, but again, it's a lot of work. So I trained it for 3 days. And after just 2 days, I found a pickle file that I really, really like. This is the one that I use. And you will see I did a linear interpolation. And I love the idea of seeing this liquidity and transformation of the art form in one piece. And then also I did noise loop, which is another feature that you can do doing the training. I love this idea of randomness when the shapes are moving and changing. So next, I found this very, very interesting feature, which is projection. And I love the concept of, or the idea of generating gestures or faces out of my own artwork. So I decided that I would like to explore this idea more. And what I did is I created a new data set using my very, very first training as a reference. And I generated 1,000 images with JavaScript code that I did with the help of some friends. Leah also helped me to do this. And basically what I did is the same process that you saw again, but then I found these beautiful shapes, forms transforming and changing. And I think that they're lovely. Probably I will have to train it more to see the results. But again, my goal was to do the next thing that I'm going to show you, which is creating these faces and gestures. It's very interesting. I mean, at least for me, to see that my artwork could have a face or could be alive somehow and has this persona behind. And finally, this is the next one that I did. It's really interesting as well. And I, of course, to do this, I use the FFHQ model that is available on the web to do the projection, right? So I use that model to do this. And then finally, what I did is a combination of those projections to create these faces. And I think this is really interesting because somehow this projection responds to the question that I asked at the beginning in my work, which is if it is possible that art could have some kind of consciousness by itself. So anyway, that's all I have here. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you, Derek and Leah, for the opportunity, and keep going. I really recommend these courses. They are fantastic, and well, I'll see you soon with more work.
Awesome, Esteban. Thank you so much. That was really great. I also just love that you have like taken the challenge of just making all your own data sets. Can you talk a little bit about like how long it takes you to produce each data set?
Well, it's a lot of work. It's time consuming. Probably the second one that I show you is probably 5 days that I was working on. But the thing is that it's not about only creating the data set, it's about reflecting on how do we have to create these data sets. At least that's my challenge, because it's all about avoiding repetition, and also it's about actually creating art. And I am infusing my own artwork into the machine learning process. So I think that's important, and that adds like a different level of complexity to what I'm doing, instead of just creating some kind of processes or tools to generate random things. That's the way I see it, and the most important thing is that the way I think and reflect about art is changing because of all these tools that I am using now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that is like one of the, I think it's like the thing I always say at the beginning of these classes, and I think it like, anytime we teach this stuff, it's like, it doesn't click with you until you're like months and months into it, right? But it's like the idea that the data set is really your artistic work. And so you have to think about, sort of like you're making a beautiful sentence in those, or a beautiful poem in those videos that you show us, but you're inventing the language before that by feeding it the data set. So I think you're right that you have to do a lot of that reflecting of like, what am I trying to say, or like what should the structure be before I even can make the poem. And yeah, it takes a ton of work. And I really love seeing your work like reflect that. And also just, I think the fact that it is, even the data set that you provide are like flat vectors, but once it gets into that StyleGAN space, it has like this texture and this depth quality to it that somehow also isn't in the originals. And I think there's just like some gorgeous like translation there as well. So
yeah, I would like to add also that while I was creating these data sets, I wasn't looking to use machine learning and see what machine learning could do. It was the opposite. It was a reflection about art and what I see in my mind, and what can I express, and then use machine learning as a tool to recreate these things that I have in my artwork. So yeah, it's really important to differentiate that between just creating data sets and creating art.
Yeah, that's a great point. Cool. Thank you so much. Our last presenter for today is Martin. So Martin, I'm gonna have you take it away.
Cool. Hey guys, my name is Martin. I'm an artist based in Edinburgh, Scotland. I got started working on stuff with the project with the National Library of Scotland, where I was brought in to explore their digitized collections, or recently digitized collections, and make some new work with it. And I thought it was the perfect opportunity to apply some generative ML. So I don't know if Moises can bring up the first video, which is a bit of work I did with a bunch of 2000 Scottish Admiralty charts. These are old Admiralty charts from at the turn of the 20th century, and they map the sort of the Scottish coastline, I suppose, around that time. And this is StyleGAN2, the OG StyleGAN, because I was training this all on a university server which didn't have CUDA 10, so I could only use StyleGAN1 at the time. But I was super into it, and I loved the process and working with it this way. And then when I saw the StyleGAN2 course came up, I thought that was a perfect opportunity to explore the newer technology and have a go at that. I think I'll definitely run this. Now that I've moved on to using StyleGAN2, I'll definitely run this through StyleGAN2, because like you can see those clear like little blue blobs that keep appearing. They're like total trademark StyleGAN1, sort of like residual components that keep appearing. But yeah, so in this class I started experimenting with some different source material that's not related to the project I was originally working on it. So and also wanted to explore videos. So yeah, I got really obsessed with these like train driver view videos, which is these kind of like meditative, like a long form, like single perspective train journey videos. And so I thought that would make a really interesting data set. And also it was also, I was really interested in exploring like how much you can control, like what can like you really have control of, and like almost like stop changing, you know, as opposed to like everything is fluid in the StyleGAN output. So I was interested in like what can you like fix. So I made like a real like effort in this. Like once I scraped the video, and then in After Effects I painstakingly, after like 6 hours, like went through the whole hour and a half and aligned the rails with the bottom of the frame. So like it's you know, pretty much in the same place, but as it goes around a corner, obviously the train like tilts a little, so that the rail actually slightly moves and sways a little bit with the G-force. So I stabilized it so that it's like in the left-hand rail is in the perfect position constantly. Yeah, I think if Moises can pull up the results, that'd be cool. So this is just a latent space interpolation, and it kind of works. It kind of doesn't work. It kind of works in that, like, as the experiment of like, oh yeah, like the rails are totally in the same place and they do not move, and you get this kind of sense of like a total fixed perspective at one point, but then also all the stuff around it's morphing, and I really like that. But I was kind of hoping that you'd have this sense of movement, of the perspective traveling through a space. But I've noticed that I guess that in those videos the perspective of movement comes from the sleepers, you know, the rail track, the wooden slats and the rail tracks passing underneath through the frame. And for some reason, the sleepers in the StyleGAN output are also completely stationary, even though I couldn't stabilize them. And I don't really know. I can't really understand. I guess that I'm interested to see if anyone has ideas of why that's happened. If it's a quirk of StyleGAN, or I've not actually checked with my data set yet, but like I think it's, you know, like that thing with like if you film a propeller, you know, if you catch it, like the frame rate of the film is like the same as like the propeller, like the blades stay in the same place. I was like, well, I don't think that's what's going on here. Is like I've not ripped cut the frames out at exactly the rate that the sleepers are going through, you know, passing under the drain. So I don't think they are actually in the same place all the time. So I don't really know why they've turned out like that. But yeah, because I also had I really wanted to run this through some sort of like SLAM, it's called. It's like simultaneous localization and movement, which is like a autonomous vehicle technology, sort of like mapping and positioning an agent in space. And I thought it'd be super cool to try and run the output of a GAN that's like of a moving object through space. And like trying to create a map and create a trajectory and create see what it thinks the journey of travel would be, and also kind of just like fuck with like technology that's supposed to be like, you know, implemented in real life with like, you know, computer generated, so machine vision generated stuff, you know. But I'm not sure that's going to work now, but we'll see. I want to do Kaitlin suggested that it'd be cool to do next prediction. Yeah, that's something I would totally be looking into. Also, GAN space would be really cool because we looked at that a little bit. I've not had time to get onto it, but GAN space is the sort of disentanglement protocol where you can start to like disentangle the vectors and assign. I think actually Adam showed a bit of that, where you can like this GUI where you can start to play with individual vectors, and I wonder if I could maybe like actually, like get the vectors that control the direction of travel, and you could like, almost like play it like a video game. You could, the other way, instead of the autonomous vehicle trying to like work out the trajectory, you could control your own trajectory. I don't know. There's loads of routes I'd like to go forward with this. But yeah, those were my experiments in the class.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Martin. I think my theory with the wood slats is that because you have so much other things changing in the environment, that it might be that StyleGAN just decided that is not an important feature of the model, right? You've got the backgrounds changing, you've got like environments changing. So it might just be to just sort of drop that as a feature. Also because frames, because it doesn't understand time, it doesn't understand movement in that way. So it might not understand that like that is something that needs to happen repetitively. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. I thought it might just blur, like that. There's some sense of like there being the wooden slats there, but like they wouldn't necessarily be come out so clear.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's no sense of time. So the spatio-temporal relationship is totally fucked up. But I kind of wanted that in a way, because if I was going to send that into the SLAM algorithm to like really mess with this kind of like relationship of space and time and see what that put out.
Yeah, totally. I think what's cool about it is it almost feels like instead of you moving along a track, it's almost like the environment is moving around you, which I think is interesting. Putting video into GANs is always like it's a bit of a crapshoot all the time to sort of figure out what's going on there. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. Cool, thank you so much. I'm just gonna see if there's any questions from the chat. But anyway, I'm really excited to see everyone's work. I thought there was so much great work that was being done here. And I hope to see all of you continue to do work in the Slack channel over the next months and years. I'm really interested to hear from those of you who are here in the Zoom chat if you want to like give Leah or I any feedback on what would have made the class better. I think Kaitlin mentioned it would be good to dig into the code, and I think that's definitely something that we could look at. But I'm also interested to hear like sort of, I get the sense, I've been thinking about if I were to reteach this class again, I think I would make it longer. And does that seem like does it seem like a right solution for some of the stuff that you guys have been learning?
I thought the time was all right. I thought 5 weeks was good. I had a small amount of programming experience, so I was able to jump into that kind of But from a different perspective, someone else might feel differently.
Yeah, I could see the class being longer. You covered a ton of content, but I feel like there's still so much out there that we could expand upon. And I like as the technology advances, I'm sure there will be more content. So like if you do redo this deep dive, I could see there being so much stuff that you'd want to teach that you'd want to make it like 8 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, I think things Leah and I have also discussed, just like giving more time for Q&A or giving more time to like actually like work on stuff. So it could be that we only have 5 lectures across 8 weeks, but there's like times where we can like just have a check-in and have just a pure Q&A sort of session. Because I think it's just, I also was really excited to see everyone in the, like this being a class with like a bunch of diverse like sort of groups of people. Like I thought it was really nice to see like Kaitlin helping out with technical issues or like other folks helping out with sort of more visual issues. So I also thought like the community aspect of it could use a couple more weeks just to sort of like develop and like foster and like help everyone help each other out. Yeah, I was really excited to just sort of see everyone like dive in and like start helping each other. I'm interested to hear, what did you guys think of like, because like Leah and I have also talked about like, should the class be just like videos that I upload and then you watch them and then there's like a Slack channel, but I sort of felt like the breakout groups were like helpful in the sense of like giving each other feedback on different ideas and different ways to approach stuff. So I'm interested to hear from you what you thought about the community as sort of like a part of the class.
Oh, totally. That's a massive benefit. Yeah, I think that's not only as a source of inspiration, but also just like, when problems come up, if you have 80 people that are trying to tackle them at the same time, it's a lot quicker to like source a solution. So yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of playing with the idea of maybe in like a future session, if we would maybe have like I don't know, once a week drop in work if you want to co-work on like a video shared Zoom chat and people can just like pop in and out.
I think that would be fun. I really like helping people learn how to code. That was something I had fun with doing a little bit in this class. So working more collaboratively would be really great. I think it's really important to demystify these kinds of tools for people, because there's no reason you need a CS degree to get into this.
In my case, I don't have any experience with coding or things like this. So it was the first time that I was diving into this terminal and Python and things like that. But along the way, I found really, really helpful collaborating. For example, Kaitlin, she was very nice. She sent me a couple of samples of things that I can do with coding. And then also Leah helped me to fine tune one tool that I did in JavaScript, which wasn't mine. Of course, someone else helped me, but this person couldn't finish it. And I feel like that would be important. I don't know, maybe my background in something else will help other people in get inspired, or but it would be really, really helpful to have that kind of exchange with our peers. Yeah, not only in coding, by the way, in other things that we don't know, maybe we are interested in.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity for more collaboration, and I also hope that people even though the class is over, I hope that people stay connected either through Slack or through other means, and keep working on things. Leo, what were you gonna say there?
No, I was just just beaming at the thought of people still chattering in the Slack channel. Yeah.
I assume people are. We've like hit our 10K limits. We're like, my messages are starting to get deleted, which is great. Those messages from like a year ago do not need to be archived anywhere, but I would love to see people continue to collaborate on stuff. And I think also that there is a growing community here. So if people are ever interested in getting connected to other folks whose work they've seen or whatever, I'll say I think particularly the StyleGAN community is very welcoming and very friendly. And you can always just send people notes and say like, hey, I saw you did this sort of thing. Like, can you tell me how you did that? And most of the time they either have collab notebooks or they'll say, oh, I edited these lines or whatever. So I would definitely encourage you that if you want to keep working with this, to just don't be afraid to reach out to people and say like, hey, I was interested if we could work on this, or you could tell me how to do this type of thing. So cool. All right, well, I think we're just about time. I just want to again reiterate that I love seeing everyone's work. I thought there was so much hard work done in this class, and also in 7 weeks, you guys produced some really, really amazing stuff. And I literally never seen anyone produce some of the things that you guys are producing. So I hope you feel proud of yourself, and I hope that you're really excited about continuing to work on this. And again, if you're ever interested or have other questions, please reach out to Leah or I. All right, with that, we'll end our stream. Thank you guys so much. And for those of you who watched, thank you for keeping an eye on this. We'll be updating this with everyone's links to social and other profiles. So if you want to reach out to these folks yourself and ask some questions, you can.
Yeah, I have been typing a little summary post of each of you guys' presentations. So you guys can add links to social, and we'll post that, and then people can find you that way.
Awesome, thanks, Leah.
Yeah.
All right, have a good one, everybody.
Cool. Thanks.
Bye.
Much.